This is a shrinking movie at its core. And there's a long history of cinematic shrinking movies, from Incredible Shrinking Man, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But this had to be 2015's version of a shrinking movie.
Visually, there are things in this movie you've never seen before. I mean, there's some of the technology and what they're doing has never been done before.
The bar is very, very high in terms of technology. It's got to look photorealistic. We have to believe that he's shrinking.
And you just shrunk down, and...
How'd you do that, bro?
Look at your shoulder.
These films have 2 or 3 different crews going on. You have your main unit shooting your actors. You have your second unit doing some of the action sequences. You have your green screen unit. And then finally, you have your macro unit doing everything from the ant's point of view. And it's amazing.
We used a combination of motion picture macro photography, still macro photography, motion capture with the actors, motion capture with the stunt people. And I think that's sort of the big technological revelation of the movie.
We spent weeks and weeks filming the tiniest details within bank vaults, within ATM machines, the tile work of bathrooms, the tiniest of pipes, the areas between the first floor and a second floor between buildings. We had these cameras that were, full 4K digital cameras, but had lenses this big that could scope through and capture these things.
For every set we'd have, we would build these sort of miniature sets, these macro sets. If you're down small with Ant-Man and he's running across a floor or running through a carpet, I really wanted to feel those textures and make it really tactile.
To be able to have a starting point that you go from a real object, that to us saves hundreds of hours in trying to match.
And using the technology the way we do, we have the resources to make all those surfaces real, but we can still move our camera around as much as possible.
It feels like a very interactive, real space because it is one.
What we ran into were a lot of the same issues that the comic book artists who drew Ant-Man back in the day had. Having him small in the frame is always really exhilarating. Having these points of reference for size in every frame is really, really important. We were constantly challenging ourselves about, does he seem small in that? Does he seem small enough in that? Are we buying that? And part of it is sort of tricking the viewer's minds when you're watching it, and having all these things like dust motes became our thing. When he's down small, there's dust everywhere. But when you're small, it's like, these dust particles floating around.
What's great about the climax of the film is, even though it starts in these epic landscapes, as the intensity of the climax increases, we end up in his daughter's bedroom. So the most intense part of the battle between Scott Lang as Ant-Man and the Yellow Jacket takes place among toy trains and dollhouses and these tiny toy environments that we blow up to epic proportions.
Any location, the inside of a briefcase, the playset in a little girl's bedroom, becomes an epic setting for an action battle.
It'd be much easier to hit you if you were bigger!
Yeah, great. Cut it.
There were all these technical considerations that we were constantly monitoring throughout. It was originally designed to be 2.40 widescreen. And the more we sort of started looking at stuff, I started thinking, well, this feels like a 1.85 movie. And there was discussion because it's like, well, man, 2.40 is the epic aspect ratio. And I said, well, Joss's first Avengers is 1.85, and that's a pretty epic movie. And it just made sense because the act of shrinking is really essentially a vertical act. And when you're small, the world you leave behind is really above you and around you. So we switched to 1.85, and I'm glad that we did because the visual effects stuff is it's so much more compelling.
We did a lot of research of macro photography of ants that has existed. What happens when you're down at the level with these animals is that they start feeling like they have personality. It's very strange. So it was important to us to keep the designs photorealistic, but we wanted to make sure that their mannerisms and the way they acted became more evident when you were down at their level.
A lot of these ants have never been seen to this kind of degree or level of detail. So we went through a lot of versions in trying to figure out, okay, which one is the best.
One thing that helped is that we thought of each breed of ant as a different type of animal. So you'd have the bullet ants, which are the biggest brutes of the lot, and they're like the size of elephants. They're these giant beasts that you can't hope to, really control. Then you've got the flying carpenter ants that feel like, horses. Regular carpenter ants that feel like, giant dogs. The fire ants who are like engineers of the group. They took on a personality, a more animalistic, and they felt less like creepy crawlers and more like actual, living, breathing pets.
It was 1987. Separatists had hijacked a Soviet missile silo in Kursk and launched an ICBM at the United States. She turned off her regulator and went subatomic to deactivate the bomb. And she was gone.
The way the suit's designed, there's something called a regulator. And the regulator makes sure you don't shrink smaller than a pinky fingernail, the approximate size of Ant-Man.
What if you took that off? What would happen in the subatomic world, the quantum realm? Is there a way that, like we've seen shrinking throughout the movie, and in the third act, can we take it a whole nother level? We really liked that idea.
The quantum realm is every mind trip that anyone has ever taken and more. It was a great discovery process for us to find that.
We've talked to physicists, and they've told us about when you get smaller than an atom, when you go into the nucleus and you get smaller than a quark, suddenly reality itself starts to shift. It becomes a realm of probabilities where an electron could be in point A or point B or in both places simultaneously.
The quantum realm to me was important as a moment of self-sacrifice for Scott Lang, but also that it tapped into that kind of psychedelic aspect of Marvel in the comics, and whether it was, outer space or inner space, this sort of cosmic soup of it all. I wanted to stake a little bit of a claim in that world too for Ant-Man and go into this subatomic realm. What would that look like, and how do you get out? And that was a really fun thing to be able to explore.
We've made a lot of movies at this point. A lot of heroes have inhabited the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it really felt like it was time to find a way to do something different.
It's different from just about every film that we had done, and yet I think it holds a little bit of that essence of that cinematic universe.
As filmmakers, sequences where with size and scale and see the world from new perspectives and hopefully put something on the screen that audiences haven't seen before excites us as much as anything.